All right, collectors, the moment you guys been waiting for. You've asked us time and time again, who is the artist on the Marvel masterpiece, that trading card set that's coming out? And here it is. Here he is, revealed for you, Dan Dos Santos. Dan, thank you so much for the time and for coming on to the Upper Deck Trading Card live stream.
Thank you, Billy, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Dan, what's it like being able to finally reveal what the trading cards look like, and the 2 year process that you've been on?
Oh God, you have no idea how nice it is. I've been sitting on this due to like a lot of COVID delays and stuff. We've been sitting on this project for longer than any of us wanted, and I poured my heart into this project for 2+ years, and I am dying to share it with everybody. I'm really excited.
So, let's talk about your artistic process. I mean, how do you, from the moment that you start a sketch to the finished product, how do you go about it?
Given the deadline, I had about 3 days per piece to get done, maybe 3.5. So I would start with day one would be all concepting, and I would come up with the idea for the character, the narrative that I wanted, and settle on that. Do a quick color study digitally. I would sketch traditionally. I'll show you guys some thumbnails later, maybe. Then do some digital colors, and then go shoot reference. Try to do all that in the first day. And then day two was drawing it out, painting the background, and day three was really finishing the figure and polishing it up. I tried to, in the spirit of the set, do as much of this as possible traditionally. And so I start off just drawing traditionally, and I can kind of zoom in here a little bit, but I print out these little sheets of thumbnails, they're called. And I make myself, for every character I wanted to do, just fill up at least one page of ideas. So here you can see Nova, and maybe I shrink it down and try a couple different versions. And I as pretty much, a task to myself, would force myself to come up with 9 good ideas before lunch. And then I would take one of these and I would just photograph it, and then I would go do my color studies. And once I really discovered that that worked, then I would go on and start producing the final painting like you see here.
So, Dan, I read that you were a huge comic book fan. How did that spark kind of get inspired, or get inflamed?
Yeah, absolutely a big comic book fan. I think comic books were my first introduction to art. That and cartoons. That I didn't grow up in an area where there were like museums accessible to me or anything, and I have an immigrant family, so it wasn't like we had a lot of, literature or anything hanging around or magazines that would have introduced me to a lot of this art. And one of my few ways to access it was the corner store or the mall, where we had a great comic shop, and that was my exposure to what I thought was the greatest art of all time, and still I kind of do think it is.
So for you, was that, tell me how that influenced the way that you kind of went about this particular set that's coming up?
So I know these characters have evolved into totally different characters than what they were 30 years ago. So for the most part, I tried to create an image of them that really harkened back to those things that I grew up with, while still being faithful to even the original version beyond that, and still taking into account some of the modern day stuff they're going to encounter. But I wanted this kind of modern take on a retro feel for most of the characters that really appealed to that stuff that I was influenced by.
For you, was there a particular character that you were really excited to get your hands on, or what really stood out for you?
All of them. The first thing I did was make a list of characters, and I think it was like I was worried I wasn't going to be able to come up with 135. And when I listed just the basics, it was like 200 characters. Yeah. So the real was culling it down. I'm an X-Men guy through and through. I love X-Men. So if I could, the whole set would be X-Men. I certainly have favorite characters myself, but the opportunities to paint, Captain America and Spider-Man and Wolverine are just unparalleled. In particular for me, Captain America was maybe one of my favorites from this set, where I really tried to embody what Captain America is, that he's more than just this like big, strong guy, that he stands for so much more than that. And then the same thing with Spider-Man, that I wanted it not to just be about, a guy who gets bit by a radioactive spider, but this card is about the sense of responsibility, that idea that with, great ability comes great responsibility, that these are all the reasons why Peter Parker literally puts on his masks. He's doing it for them, not just for him. And hopefully, as people look through the set, they get that same sense of joy that I got, really embodying the spirit of these characters and the set as a whole.
I think for you, Dan, what would you say is the hardest part about trying to capture that in oil painting form and then eventually in trading card form?
The fact that it's a single image. A lot of comics, they're sequential storytelling. So you have a whole book to tell a single story. When you have one frame of what normally a comic artist would have, hundreds of, to tell everything about a character in a single frame, it's a whole different art form in and of itself. And there's always some sacrifice. You can't give everything in one piece, but I really tried my hardest to give viewers as much as I could in one single image.
For you, Dan, what's your experience with Marvel trading cards been like? Like, is it something that you collected in your teens? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep, I could, just beyond the camera, I have binders full of them. But for me, this set has always been a passion project. I love the cards. I collect the cards. I've collected even the non-Marvel Masterpiece sets. They were great inspiration for me as I was working to look at how other artists treated this character and stuff. So the fact that one day I can have a binder of my own and stick it along with the other ones
Yeah.
is pretty top notch.
Dan, for you, I know that you're also part of a mentorship program online.
Paying it forward is hugely important to me. In addition to mentoring, I run a website called Muddy Colors, which is just a free art education website to provide them with those same opportunities I had, because otherwise so much talent, and I think particularly in comics, would just go, unattended, and it needs to be fostered. I was so fortunate in my teenage years to meet a professional artist that lived in my town, and he just took me into a studio and showed me how to do this for a living, like how to do your taxes, how to do revisions, who do you reach out, what is it called? And I think without that, I probably wouldn't be doing this professionally. There was this impasse that I couldn't get over, that comics were beginning to be digitally colored around that time. And I
Mhm.
was trying to create that effect with markers and colored pencils and traditional media. And I just couldn't quite do it. I couldn't make it look like what I was seeing in the comics, and showed that to my mentor. And he was like, you want to be doing this. You want to be painting. This is called illustration. You might want to use oils if what you want to do is paint really realistic people. And so I specifically learned in high school how to oil paint, and then went to college and just focused solely on that. But I really did have a good solid foundation of drawing, and then just needed to learn the craft of painting realistically there. And that's it. I just focused on that one thing really intensely. So that's all I've done since.
What else can collectors really expect in this trading card set?
I think they can expect narrative pieces. Being an illustrator, a lot of it is about storytelling for me, and getting this viewer to really envision an entire scene in their head and not just a pinup of somebody jumping out at the camera. So I wanted to, with every single piece, create an image that I felt was iconic to that character, that somebody who didn't know anything about this character could look at this piece and deduce what this character is about, what their backstory is, or what their ability is without knowing anything about it. And for the most part, I think I kind of succeeded with that on almost every image. So I'm proud of that.
I just want to say that black cat right behind you, I think really encapsulate that because when I look at that, I think of lasers. I think of like a almost like a burglar kind of thing. Tell me a little bit about that.
I kind of like, whenever I had a chance to do laser beams or like buzz saws, like anything that felt cool and danger
Yeah,
room. So I thought this idea of Black Hat kind of slipping through these like laser beams would be really cool and iconic. And the
yeah,
whole is meant to be turned around, like you realize she's actually upside down, and just like
right.
when you discover the guy walking the guard, walking through the doorway. Um, but again, just a moment of like what really would exhibit her story, and that would be burglary and agility and things like that, and beauty. Her hair is a big characteristic of it to me. So
Expectations that you set for yourself going into this, do you feel like you far exceeded those, or how do you feel like you?
I don't know if I far exceeded it, but I think I killed myself a little bit on this job. There is not one single painting I'm not totally proud of, which any artist can tell you. Not every painting can be a winner. Some jobs just go easy and others are struggles. But I stuck with it and stayed up late nights to get it done. And I think, like, honestly, there's nothing I would redo about this set. Truly, I'm really pleased with the way every single piece came out, and I'm hoping that the fans are really pleased with them as well.
Dan, I just want to say thank you so much for your time and really appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to opening these cards and just definitely taking a look for myself.
Billy, thanks for having me. This is a real pleasure. I can't wait to share this with everybody, and thank you guys for your help in helping me do that. For anybody that's interested in seeing more and seeing like a behind the scenes and how a lot of these pieces are created, you can follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at dandosantos_art or my own website, dandosantos.com. And I hope to post behind the scenes looks at all of these paintings, time lapses of these paintings being created, the thumbnails, the color studies, the photo shoots, and really show you guys how a Marvel masterpiece set is created behind the scenes.